Yo, what's good? Give y'all a minute to get up in here. What's good, everybody? Give y'all a minute to smash up in here. Do me a favor. Hit the like button when you come up in here. Help me out with the algorithm. Help me out with the algorithm. Because they damn sure not. ABC Google is not going to do the right thing and send these notifications out unless y'all smash that like button. Hope y'all had a good weekend. All my fellow freedom marchers. Hope you guys moved one step closer to freedom this weekend. One step closer to improving yourself, improving your life, improving your family situation. Because I know with everything that's going on, you know, they're trying to make it hard for us to live. They're trying to make it hard for us to be happy. They're trying to make it hard for us to pursue happiness. You know? Stop chewing with this damn gum. But, you know, we got to keep pushing forward and understand that it's not up to them to allow us to pursue happiness. That's something that we have to fight for ourselves, right? We got to stop relying on government to tell the truth, to keep us safe, to give us freedom, to allow us to be free, to permit us to be free. These are things that we have to fight for ourselves. And once we obtain it, it's something that we're going to have to continue to fight to maintain. So that's what understanding we need to have as freedom lovers, right? Freedom lovers and individuals who, you know, believe in absolute freedom and don't compromise. It's people want you to think it's hard to have 100% unadulterated freedom. People think it's difficult. People think that if you allow freedom to exist, then people are going to murder people and get away with it. People are going to, you know, rob, steal, kill. They feel like they need government to get a handle on people like that. But as you can see, those people exist regardless of freedom. Whether or not the population has freedom, you're still going to have people that are that want to murder, steal, kill, scam, you know, violate other people's rights. These are things that people are going to do no matter what. No matter what state we're in as a whole, no matter what position we're in as individuals as a whole. So don't be discouraged, right? Don't be discouraged. We just have to keep pushing. One village at a time, guys. That's what I say. It starts with one individual at a time. Once a single individual realizes that freedom is important and they must do whatever they can to achieve it. Then you move on to family. And then from there, you go to an entire village. And that's probably as far as you would need to go, as long as people leave you alone. But let's face it. Let's face it. How long is that going to last? Not very long, all right? So, and then you have people that claim they want freedom, but they still support the cops. They still support politicians. You know, it's just their actions don't meet their words. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today in regards to certain individuals. And it's not just the two individuals that I have tagged in the title, right? There are a number of individuals who have this level of hypocrisy that keeps us stagnant. And when I say us, I mean the people that look up to these individuals as guides and role models and whatnot. They're stagnated because they have fallen into the cult of personality. Okay? They have fallen into the cult of personality. You know, ABL, Brandon Tatum, any number of people, anybody. Ben Shapiro, anybody that you might want to feel is a champion of freedom, they're really not. If you look at their rhetoric, if you look at who they support, if you look at the groups they support, they're really not for freedom. If you are a pig supporter, then you are not, excuse me, you're not a freedom lover. It can't be. It can't be that way, right? And then you also have to keep in mind how these individuals stoke division, how they perpetuate division, whilst complaining about divisive behavior of people on the left. They say, oh, these people are divisive, they're race baiting, it's always about racism and blah, blah, blah. But every these individuals get, they bring up racism themselves. No matter what the situation is, it always goes back to the issues, the problems with black culture, right? It always goes back to the problems of black culture. They always perpetuate these ideals of what a white conservative harbors, right? Certain white conservatives harbor these ideas about what the black culture is. And they're like 99% wrong, right? They're 99% wrong. But instead of correcting this, ABL and Brandon Tatum and others, they foment that ignorance, right? They foment that ignorance. And I'm going to give you a few examples. I wanted to do this from my computer, but you know, I had family over this weekend, and I couldn't really get to that because they were in my office doing things, you know, hanging out and all this other shit. And they wanted to hang out, watch movies, this, that, and the third. And it just got too late. But anyway, what prompted me to want to talk about this was when Brandon Tatum's doing a video, and he's doing a video, and it's a video about, and I forgot exactly. That's why I wanted to do it from the computer so I could actually show you guys the video. But the talking points are something that are common with him. So I'm just going to talk about some of the things he said. He was talking about how basically how white folks are better than black people. Even though white folks, right, Europeans came over here, they enslaved a nation of people, and they eradicated whole tribes of Native Americans, and they destroyed whole cultures, and they kind of like convoluted the history of black people in this country, right? Because if you do further research than what they want you to see. If you do further research beyond what ABL and Brandon Tatum understands or wants you to understand, you know that black people, right, were here before the Europeans showed up. Okay, so most of the slaves that were here did not come from Europe, right? Did not, I mean, not Europe. Were not stolen from Africa. That's just not true. There were a number of people number of black people, a large majority of the black people that were slaves were already here. All right, they were part of certain indigenous tribes. They made up whole indigenous tribes, so forth and so on. As a matter of fact, if you look at the oldest skull found in South America, the oldest skull ever found in South America, I think it was like, I forgot how many tens of thousands of years old this skull was. It was a Negroid skull, meaning black, a black person's skull. So, barring that, let's get beyond that, right? He talks about how, see, white folks can't do no wrong in Brandon Tatum and ABL's eyes. Not even the white folks that enslaved people in this country. Because according to Brandon Tatum, they came over here and improved the lives of the people in this country. Oh, they made some mistakes, but they made this country great. Now, my question is, who says there was anything wrong with this country before the Europeans showed up? If you ask the Europeans, of course, you know, they were, the indigenous folks were eating each other and sacrificing children to the gods. That's according to them, right? That's what they're going to tell you to justify coming over here and civilizing the savages, right? That's what they're going to tell you. But that's not even the truth, okay? They want to tell you that, they want all that, but this is in South America. God damn, dog. So that, according to, their story, they call it history, but I'll call it their story. That's what it was. They came over, and according to Brandon Tatum, white folks came over here, they made some mistakes, but they improved the lives of they improved the shit and this, that, Listen, no one said that that we need the Europeans come over here and improve anything, okay? They came over here and destroyed a lot of shit. They destroyed whole cultures, they destroyed whole tribes, all this, that, and the third. But these are just mistakes, according to Brandon Tatum, that are ultimately forgivable, okay? But the conditions that black people live in that not forced them, but black people in this country were placed in a position where certain behaviors manifested, okay? Certain behaviors manifested in many black people in this country that contributes to the degradation of the black community in this country. But it wasn't just because black folks just woke up one day and decided that they were going to be self-destructive, okay? It was set up that way. It was set up that way. Regardless of what Brandon Tatum and ABL tells you, it was set up that way, right? The trauma that was suffered under slavery for all those hundreds of years in the United States, and not just, let's just stick to slavery, contributed to the trauma that black folks feel today through epigenetics. That's a real thing, right? That's a real thing. But that's something that is ignored and is even dismissed by people like ABL and Brandon Tatum, because we're supposed to lift ourselves up by our bootstraps regardless to what. Even if you don't have bootstraps, you gotta go and you gotta go make some. You gotta go make bootstraps to pull yourself up by. And because they feel like they made it, right? And a certain number of black people have made it, and because there are many black star athletes who are worth millions of dollars, there's no validity to the level of oppression that black people feel in this country. It's all pure fallacy, right? To suggest that, okay? To suggest that, oh well, black people, they don't suffer from any oppression in this country because there are so many black millionaires who are athletes. And look at me, I got me a white woman, and I live in a white suburb, and I have a bike, I have a white bike, I go bike riding with white people that accept me. That doesn't mean anything, right? Those are just outliers, to tell you the truth. Those are outliers, right? Even myself, like, I consider myself to be considerably successful as a black man in this country. But that doesn't mean that black people don't suffer under a disparity of, there's a disparity of the oppression black people suffer as opposed to everyone else in this country. There's a huge disparity. I feel like every individual in this country that isn't part of the elite class suffers from some level of oppression, right, by the elite class that they use the government to oppress us with. But there's a huge, vast disparity, right, that people want to ignore. Now, I'll give you an example from ABL about how, it doesn't matter what black people suffer. But when it comes to the Jays, well, there's some understanding there. Now, he did a video where Ben Shapiro was debating this other Jay, right? Ben Shapiro's a Jay, and he was debating with this other Jay at some little debate. And this one Jay asked Ben Shapiro a series of questions that ultimately led up to him asking, is it true that the trauma suffered under the Holocaust can be passed down through generations, right? Genetically and epigenetically. And Ben Shapiro was like, yeah, that's definitely a truism. So then the guy was like, well, how is it that you don't accept that black people, right, or descendants of slaves suffered under the same trauma that was passed down through epigenetics, through a shared trauma through the generations? And so ABL's doing this video about it, and ABL's like, well, that was he basically dismissed that because it's been over 100 years since slavery ended, and the people under the civil rights era, that black people were in much better position, according to him, like in terms of not being self-destructive, but fighting against a system that was oppressing them, and not being in so much black on black crime that we suffer from today. And because it was so long ago, that's no longer valid. Well, that's not how epigenetics work, okay? Because in ABL's mind, and in Brandon Tatum's mind, and that guy, the black conservative perspective, in their mind, when slavery ended, that was it. Like, okay, everything was great and dandy for black folks, and we had no reason to be in a position that we're in today. Like, after slavery ended, we were supposed to be automatically prosperous and peaceful and all that type of shit. We were supposed to be on the same level as Europeans in this country as soon as slavery ended, according to them. That's how they feel, right? Right? That's when slavery ended. That was it. That was the end of oppression for black people in this country. Well, we know that's not true, right? We know that we got the Jim Crow era, right? That lasted well into the 1900s. Then we had the Civil Rights era, where they still didn't want to give us all of our rights. They didn't want us to have anything. They didn't want us to have shit, right? And then after, the Civil Rights Act and all the other shit in the 60s, you still had certain levels of oppression. You still had COINTELPRO that were trying to break up and dismantle and destroy these civil rights groups, because they did not want black people to come out on top. They didn't want black people to thrive and to prosper. So they came up with COINTELPRO, thanks to J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI. And this continued the oppression of black people. But none of this shit matters, because guess why? We're no longer literal slaves. We're no longer chattel slaves. We're no longer being sold on the auction block. So there's no reason for us to be down hard. But that's not the reality. It's not the reality that black people should be thriving in this country based on our own merit, because there are active steps being taken to hold black people down. Whether y'all want to believe it or not, whether they want to believe it or not, it's just a reality. There are many examples of this, where you got police chiefs of whole police departments ordering their men to set up black people, right? To actively go after black people and do what you can to frame black people. He actually got prosecuted for that. You got judges who are taking money from private prisons to send black people to prisons on harsher sentences than white folks would suffer under. You got forensic specialists falsifying evidence to send black people to prison by the thousands. You got when people are being released, I forgot what this is called. When you're convicted, when you're falsely convicted of a crime, and you get set free after 20 or 30 years and that you already have been in prison, right? I forgot what that. What is that term? What is that term? But you know what I'm talking about. You got law groups out there trying to help black people, not just black people, but falsely convicted people get set free based on new technology that they use to study evidence to free people. 70% of those individuals who were falsely convicted and then set free were black people. And many of these individuals had been falsely imprisoned during the 70s and the 80s, a crucial time where our fathers were being taken from us. But that shit is never a factor when ABL and Brandon Tatum talk about the struggles of the black community. According to Brandon Tatum, black culture is the problem. And because to him, black culture is self-destructive. It's killing each other. That's the summation of black culture to Brandon Tatum. It's not what we contributed to this country in terms of development, right? In terms of music, art, all the inventions, all the innovations that black people have contributed to, that have improved the lifestyle of individuals in this country, right? Thomas Edison is given so much credit, but for the light bulb, but it was a black man who came up with the filament that made that light bulb work the way it does, that is used to this day in incandescent light bulbs. Open heart surgery was first performed by a black man. You understand what I'm saying? Traffic lights, all type of shit That's not part of black culture. No, black culture is F that bitch, kill that nigga. That's to him, that's what black culture is. So he had to separate himself from that. He went to college, Brandon Tatum did, and the white folks in Arizona loved him so much. So therefore, you know, because we know why, because he was a star athlete, and you know they had to keep their you know, they money cows up in the building. They had to make their athletes happy, right? Listen, like I said, man, if you are not part of the elite class in this country, right? If you have not sold out, if you're not part of the oligarchy, right? Then you are part of the oppressed class of this country. You're a proletariat. You are being oppressed. And that's something that I recognize. It's not just black people, you know? Because in order for them to operate as they do, they need everyone to be oppressed. And in order to divide and conquer, they do ensure that black people suffer more under oppression than their counterparts. And this causes division among the oppressed class. And until everybody recognizes this, it's going to continue to be a problem, right? Because we're going to be focusing on two sides of the oppressed class going at each other, instead of focusing our ire on who it needs to really be focused on. We're busy attacking each other and we're not even trying to understand each other's positions, right? And I was talking about that with my wife yesterday, because it's like this. White folks will never understand the black struggle, right? It's just, they can't. And they don't have to. That's the thing. We have to stop looking to white people to empathize and fully understand the black struggle, right? Now, you do have some leftists that claim that they understand it, and they claim that they empathize. But in reality, they're just using black people to strengthen their power structure, right? They want black people to be on their side so they can have more power, right? So that they want to act like they understand and that they believe in the struggle, but they really don't. This is something that we have to understand. White people will never understand the black struggle. And the sooner we come to that realization, and the sooner we accept that, the sooner we can move forward, and the sooner we can continue to march toward freedom head on. Stop trying to act like you understand it, because those white folks who don't believe that there's a black struggle, they definitely want to understand it. And black people, we have to help them understand. We don't need you to understand it. It is what it is. And it's funny how certain white folks can't understand the black struggle, but can understand their own struggle under the oppressive government. You know? Make it make sense, but you know, it is what it is. And that's what we need them to understand. We don't need them to understand the black struggle. We need them to understand that there is oppression from this system, okay? And when we talk about how black people are being persecuted, right? And we don't need you to understand that. I mean, you can say what you want about it, but it is what it is. We don't need you to see it. What we have to do is fight to end that oppression, to end that struggle, by focusing on the real enemy. Jed from down the street, he can't give you no freedom. What are we fighting with him for? It's a useless exercise. It's a very fruitless. I'm not gonna fight Jed across the street. He has no hold over me. Like, he can't do anything to me. And if he does try to do something to me, I can handle it accordingly. But I don't need that. I don't need to go after him. I don't even need to go after people like Ben Shapiro, who has some level of power. Because ultimately, he doesn't have any sway over what happens to black people. He don't even give a fuck. So let's stop. We need to stop trying to get people get people to understand the struggle and focus on fighting our fight. And when we can come together against the common enemy and end that oppression together, that's going to be a much better outcome. That's gonna bring about a much better outcome. Because believe it or not, the white proletariat and the black proletariat and Hispanic proletariat, any color, black, purple, blue, green, orange, we all have a common enemy. They just attack us in different ways. They have played it perfectly. So we have to focus our energy on that. All right. Well, I don't believe that you are struggling as much as you say you are. I don't need you to. I need you to focus on the fact that you are suffering under the same oppression. Not at the same degree, but you're suffering from the same oppressor. And once we eradicate the oppression by going after the source, well, then after that, then we can figure it out. At that point, it won't even matter, because we'll all be responsible for our own destinies. We'll all be responsible for our own lives, our own happiness, our own freedoms. And we can all go out about a merry way. Right? Does that make more sense? Does that to me, that makes more sense. And there are those out there that'll claim that that's what they want. They want us all to come together and we all have the same enemy. We all fight under the same oppression. But then they'll turn around and shit on black people. You know what I'm saying? They'll perpetuate the stereotype. They'll perpetuate this idea that black people are self-destructive without calling attention to how self-destructive white folks can be. Human beings are human beings. Ukraine and Russia, right? Ukraine, Russia, Poland, Russia, Bulgaria, cutting off the gas supply to those countries. That's why going against their contract. Going against the contract and all the other shit. That's a form of white on white crime. But nobody's calling it that. The shit that Putin is allegedly doing in Ukraine, they don't want to call that white on white crime. It's just war. It's just war. Get out of here with that bullshit. It's not black on black crime. It's not white on white crime. It's one human's crime against another's. One human's crime against another person. It's you creating a victim out of another individual. And it's always going to exist. But when it's set up in such a way by the oppressive system that it is disproportionately highlighted or disproportionately exercised, black on black crime, because we have been set up in certain conditions to where yo, that's just what happens. Because we live in the same area. We live, we're all impoverished, but you just happen to be less impoverished than me. That's what it is. When you box people in, right? When you box people in and you put them in projects, right? And in ghettos, and you deny them certain, you don't invest in the community, even though you're taking taxes from that community. You don't invest in the community in the right way. This is what happens. It doesn't just happen in black communities. It happens in impoverished communities as well. But look what's happening in LA. They're branching out. There's less black on black crime going on, and more black on other racist crime. They're going into Beverly Hills. They're going into these more affluent areas. And it's not just black people doing this. It's criminals, period. Criminals, period, are they're branching out with their crime. Why? Because when you weaken the individual, when you weaken the community by implementing these victimizing laws like gun control, or when you release criminals back out into society after they committed a crime, things like that, then you are creating a level of victimhood out of the people, right? Because these people can't arm themselves and defend themselves, or they'll go to prison them damn selves. But they're not the criminal. But the criminal don't give a fuck about that law. The government is perpetuating this crime. They're the ones keeping the crime wave going. They're the ones that are helping increase the crime rate in places like Chicago, in places like Los Angeles, San Francisco, Oakland, right? New York, New Jersey. These places where all this crime is increasing. It's because the people are not empowered to defend themselves. They're not empowered, even in impoverished neighborhoods. If you allow people to empower themselves, then they would be better equipped to defend their lives, to defend their homes, to defend their property. But they don't want to do that. People won't, they don't, you know what I'm saying? That they don't have the training. They won't go out and train. What's the point? Well, I can't do anything with the shit. I can't, they're not encouraged. But I think there's this I've got this one county, and I think it's in Texas, where the sheriff is like, yo, somebody broke into somebody's house and the homeowner shot the intruder, and the sheriff was like, hey, we need y'all to do more of that, right? He wants to empower the people in his community. He said, yo, look, go out. Like I said, that sheriff, I forgot which town that was in, but he said, yo, the sheriff, this guy, the sheriff, he said, I don't know why they keep fucking, I don't know what it is, but yo, he's like, when you have an intruder, this is what you need to do. You need to take them out. It'll save us money, and it'll empower you. He wants to empower. You know what I'm saying? He wants to empower his community. Yeah, Sheriff Grady in Florida. Yeah, thanks, Dark Nebula. You know, that's empowerment. You're empowering your fucking community. It may sound harsh, but you know what that might do in that community? It might kind of deter criminals from doing the shit. Oh, he's telling people to shoot us? Oh hell no, they're gonna think twice, I believe, before bringing it to your house. Or it can go one or two ways. They'll make them think twice, or they'll probably bring a weapon themselves. Well, good luck. You know what I'm saying? But that's what needs to happen across the board in this country. I can guarantee you'll see the black on black crime rate. You'll see that go down, and the white on white crime rate, and the black on white and the white on black and the Asian on Asian whatever. You'll see that go down, right? But they don't want to do that, man. They want you to rely on government, and that is what it is. And that, I mean, I don't know, that's just what it is. I mean, they don't want you. But we have to take our power back. That's the only solution. And there are many steps we can take to do that. You gotta be prepared. You gotta be prepared to be very uncomfortable, right? Because it's not just gonna happen just like that. We're not gonna just be able to say, yo, give us our freedoms. And they're gonna say, okay, no, we gotta fight for that shit. We gotta take our freedoms back. But we gotta pull our heads out of our asses. But before we can do that, we gotta pull our ass out of the sand. Because our heads are up our asses and our asses in the sand. We're double blind in this bitch. And people like ABL and Brandon Tatum are going to keep people double blind until somebody calls them out. You know, and that's why I'm doing this video today. That's why I'm talking about it the way I'm talking about it in this live stream, because it's not talked about enough, man. It simply isn't. We got to stop expecting white people to understand the black struggle. And white folks, we don't need you to understand our struggle. We don't need you to validate us. You know what I'm saying? we don't need it. Just stay out of our fucking way. when we go to, when black people are ready to rise up and fight for our freedom, stay out of our fucking way, or lock arms with us and fight alongside us to achieve your freedom at the same time. I think that's fair. I don't know about y'all, but I think that's fair as fuck. You know? That's something that I feel like can be achieved. We can achieve that. We can achieve that. We don't need to understand each other's struggle. We don't need to understand each other's anything. All we need to understand is that we have a common enemy. And that enemy is complicated, is multifaceted, and in many ways invisible. But we know who they are. We know who they are. We know to the extent they're willing to go to hold us back, to keep us down. And we have to say, fuck that, fuck them, and that's it. You know, so anyway, that's all I got for now. We're gonna keep the movement going. And yeah, that's it. Anyway, shout out to you guys. Much love, like, share, subscribe, whatever you got to do. And let's keep marching forward toward freedom. Peace.